I'll go live just for now, and I'm just gonna listen that we can hear each other and stuff like that. Okay, I can hear us, so your image is working, and then I'm just gonna mute.
Let me tell you about a very special place. It's called Craft World. Home, in fact, to the one they call Sackboy. And he's about to have a very strange day.
I do love a warm welcome! That look of pure terror! Oh, don't tell me you don't recognize your old pal Vex. You know, bringer of nightmares, master of the uproar. The Imagisphere has already been cast into darkness. This is the land of uproar now, and I'm the god of nightmares who rules it, and there's nothing you can do to stop me!
Craftworld needs a new protector. A sack person of true potential. Someone like you.
Craftworld will be mine!
Let me tell you about a very special place. It's called...
Yep. Okay.
Let me tell you about a very special place.
Okay, something's happening.
It's called...
Cool. And that should work. I think that works. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that should work. In a few minutes, it should pop up.
It's cool.
Cool. Cool. That should work. All right. And I think that works. We just have to see the best way of showing you. Yeah. Okay, that should work. In a few minutes, it should pop up. Yeah, let me just. I don't. Cool, that's good. And then I need to. You can technically. Let's see. That's interesting. So they can see my... So there you are, and there I am. Okay, that's good. Looks like it's a different resolution. That's okay. We'll just what we'll do is what's important that I can see you. So we'll just start with that. So, Pablo. Yeah. As long as they see you, it's good. Okay. So, Pablo. Let's just focus on you, which is the point. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. Your education, can we start with that? 2, 2 seconds, I can't hear you for some reason. Why is that? Just do. Okay. If you would talk a little bit, Pablo. Okay. It's not a problem. Why does it work this time? Desktop audio. Default. Output. Sorry guys, this is a new problem. Last time this was not a problem. Pablo, say hello. No. Okay, we go for a backup plan. Because Yeah, I mean it's a bit weird with some of these things because they're very random. They just happen out of the blue, and it doesn't always make sense why it doesn't work even, which is a bit sad. Yeah, I mean it's a bit weird. Okay, I can hear myself in the live stream at least. Just gonna try question mark. Let me just delete this. That's you over there. Let me just resize it. This new one. If you just talk a little bit as well. Well, this didn't happen last time. This is completely. It's it's not embarrassing or anything, but it's annoying for the other people who are nice enough to tune in. I'm thinking. I don't know if anyone is very good at this silly software ops, but. Dance, desktop audio, it says it's active, so I don't know why it's not picking up your sound, because I already did the test with a friend as well and everything was fine in Teams as well. I think because I'm supposed to pick up your mic on my side as well. I think that's kind of the concept. So but it doesn't seem to be doing it, and I'm just gonna stop and start the stream just briefly. If it's because what's important is that when you talk that it kind of picks up on you, and but you have to keep talking a little bit. I mean, if you just keep talking, that's fine. Just tell me how Barcelona is. Yeah, that's true.
I wanted to say that you have a really good comedic, really good timing because of the EU5, Unreal Engine 5 that came out yesterday.
Yeah, I know. I saw it on the streams and everything. I was like, this is bad timing because now everyone is watching. So I think they should hear you now. I think we fixed it. Right, guys? You're hearing
Okay.
it? I really do apologize for this. But I think if we go back to Discord, it should work now regardless of what we use. Should we try it? Are you up for it? Do you want to try? Do you want to try?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Should be good.
Okay, let's try it. Let's go to Discord and try. Whew.
Wait.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, it works. I can see in the.
It works.
Yeah, I can see in the recording software that it's picking up your sound now.
Okay. And
Just need your beautiful face as well, if you don't mind.
yep. I'm trying. Give me a sec.
Thank you for the patience, Nina, Lucas, Joey, Pablo. We already got one dislike because of the problems.
Damn it. They like the dislike ratio. Wait. I need to log off from.
Yeah, you need to log off from Teams. Oh, that's so
From Teams?
That's so immature to give us a
Okay.
dislike for my amateurism. Cool. So yes.
Man, they like. Yeah.
So feel free to like and subscribe, and forgive us. I know Unreal Engine is also happening, but that's not the big problem. We have about 10 people watching at any given time, so it's okay. I'm happy with that. So Pablo, okay, so tell us, you are still quite new to the industry.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened. You started somewhere. What happened? You went to the school. Why did you study this, for example? I think it's a good question. Why did you pick this?
Yeah, I mean, just to give a little bit of background about myself, I'm Pablo. I'm lighting artist or junior lighting artist, and currently working in Ubisoft Barcelona. So how I did, I got started into the industry. I mean, I studied computer arts in Abertay University in Dundee in the UK. I finished in 2018, but the thing is, at the time I wanted to do illustration, concept art, and I did a little bit of 3D, but just basic blockouts and stuff like that. And after getting hammered with not getting any interviews and getting rejections all the time for concept positions, I started to wonder and see what other options were available to me. That's how I started to do a little 3D. I got into Unreal. That's how I started to do lighting stuff, and slowly but steadily I did the transition into doing lighting.
Very well. So, what inspired you to even go to a game-specific school? Because I think you went to an art school of some sort, isn't that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it was a regular university with many different degrees, but the one I did go, it was more geared towards arts, basically computer arts, but I did have people in my course that wanted to do more like fine arts, expositions and stuff like that. As to why, I don't actually know. I had in mind that I could do either something related to sports or maybe something some engineering or maybe even architecture. But then I somehow ended up doing that. So
all right, well, that's cool. So you don't necessarily know what inspired you 100%, but you went to the school, and how did you like your time there? Because you went, was it 3 years you went?
It was a 4-year degree, although I did what they call the accelerated course, which basically is I do one of the semesters during the summer. So basically, instead of doing it in 4 years, I do it in 3.5. The good thing is that I finished earlier. The bad thing is that I lost 2 summers. But anyway.
Well, that depends on your perspective, doesn't it? Because you lost 2 summers, but you're working now already. You already have experience. Right? A lot of people they do also struggle a lot, but so did you, I guess. So you went to the university, and your experience there was you learned different things to like 3D modeling, animation, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Although I have to say that at uni I wasn't the most the best student to say. For example, like my first 2 years, I spent it barely doing much, and then third and fourth year, that's when I started to pick up work. But then I was doing like live drawing, technical analysis for design, and shape language and composition more than actual 3D modeling and texturing or any of the 3D related work. So
yeah, I wasn't really that good myself either. I had to spend a lot of time afterwards to kind of learn and improve myself as well. Okay, so you were at the school, and then something changed, because you originally got into concept arts at the hobby, and that's kind of what you wanted to focus on, you mentioned. So what made you decide first concept art during the schools?
I don't know. I think it was because when I started to get into the art for games, I stumbled into Feng Shu design, Feng Shu school. He was doing a lot of concept art. He did concept for Star Wars, and then I stumbled into Theo Prince and started to learn about painting and concept design and so on, and just kept going with it. It was just much later when I started to explore the lighting side. Although I have to say that some of the things I learned for painting, so basically like how to compose an image, how to give depth to the environment, how to use color temperatures, so on. They are helpful now. So
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So during your days when you were concept arting, you noticed you were interested in lighting, basically.
Yeah, I mean, more than being interested, it was I got hammered with rejections. So I was like, okay, I need to take a step back and evaluate my options. So the thing is that when you go to school, or when you get started, you basically have the option of being a modeler, or you are a modeler. Not that you are not given the much options. Although when you start to look into the industry and you see that there is people who do material artists, there are tech artists, there are people doing VFX, there are people who specialize in rigging, there are people who do many different jobs and positions that you have never heard of. So that's how I started to investigate and see which one could fit me the best. And yeah, I got into lighting, mainly because I didn't have to model and texture everything. I was free to use stuff I found randomly.
Okay, cool. So it's interesting that you mentioned that during your university time you were kind of taught one specific role. So are you saying that you would have appreciated that they informed you about the different roles early on, so you could kind of experiment and learn what suits your needs? Would that be a good guess?
Yeah, but I think it's not only about my university, but in any studies in general, like usually is quite structured. And also, like, for example, for us it was more project based, so it wasn't really about teaching per se, as in you have a project to work, you are given some time, and then you are receiving feedback on it. But it's not really like, okay, I'm sitting down with you, I'm teaching you X. Is it more, you have to do this, you have the X amount of weeks, do your best, and then every few weeks or so on, you get feedback, and that's how.
Okay. So you said you were originally actually, yeah, that's good. So anyone who has any questions, feel free to ask it, and you wouldn't be interrupting. I'm more than happy to ask questions. So they're asking, how old are you now?
I'm 24, although 25 in summer. So
what advice? This is a hard one, maybe. What advice would you give someone starting out who isn't going to the university for it, who is, say, coming from another 3D program?
I have to emphasize that when I finished school, I had no idea whatsoever about 3D. I had used Maya once, and I knew I was awful at it. So, for example, if you want to do lighting, there are lots and lots of resources online, especially now with yesterday they announced Unreal 5s, and everybody is losing their minds about it. I don't know. There are a couple resources I put together. I don't know if I just drop them in the in the chat.
Is it the links and resources you showed earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can drop it in the chat for people to look at.
Actually, it's too long, and
okay.
I think if you recognize it at.
Yeah, it's not a problem. So he's talking about these resources. So I guess you guys can take a screenshot of my screen for now, or we will be happy to send you some of the resources afterwards. What I'll do, I'll put it in the description in a minute, and you guys can look at it.
But just to go briefly over them, like the main, if you are going to be getting into lighting, obviously Epic resources are going to be your best ally. So that's the Unreal documentation and the Unreal YouTube channel. They have pretty much everything you need for how and what and how each thing works and interacts between each other. Also, I would highly suggest that you watch GDC, the GDC videos about different topics. They have pretty much anything related to games, and they have a couple really good ones for lighting. If you haven't seen, Adobe has a really good PBR guide, which basically shows anything that you need to know about PBR, the different values for the metallic, the color, and so on. Especially now that everything is moving to realistic, and you need to know, or at least have a place where to look up how everything works.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to see
And
the change.
yeah, and one resource I highly recommend. Let me see if it lets me paste it here. It's there is a guy, a technical artist for Naughty Dog called Joey Lenz. He has an UE4 guide or compilation of different stuff, which is really useful. So that should help a lot.
Yeah. I'll put up the links in the description for later, so people don't have to. And there will be an edited video right afterwards with that doesn't have all the problems in the beginning, but which also will have the descriptions for you guys. You have another question. In the industry, do we have to choose one specialty if we get into Unreal, or are we able to say both an environment and a character artist? So basically, do you need to pick a specialty, or can you do multiple roles?
I mean, obviously, you can do everything as far, but then you start to you have to start thinking about, do I want to be a guy who can work on anything but doesn't have as much in-depth knowledge of one specific thing? So if, for example, you are interested to work with indie studios or smaller studios, it's really useful to have a guy who knows a little bit of environment, but can also help with lighting, but also can help on setting up the shaders for the materials. If you are thinking more about something that is slightly bigger, or I don't know, something AAA or stuff like that, you will have people who are specialized or mostly specialized in one field. So, for example, obviously, you will have the environment guy, which is quite similar to the prop or the material because he has to know a little bit of everything. But usually, if you know more than one area, usually it's something related to your own. So, for example, you are not going to have a UI designer who also specializes in environment art, for example. Usually are like small bubbles. So, for example, you're not going to have I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So normally, so what he's saying is normally you have to pick one, but if you're on a smaller studio, you can often be a generalist and you can do a bit more different things.
It's not that you have to pick one. It's more like obviously the competition is really high, so your portfolio has to be up to the competition, up to the people who is already working. So if you are doing multiple things, you have multiple things to be working on at the same time. Whereas if you are working on 1, 2, maybe 3, which are related. So, for example, you can be a lighting, but also do some basic modeling and focus on doing some shaded work for materials to set up everything and make the shiny stuff look good and stuff like that. You have much more time in your hands to push and work on that.
So how do you recommend? Are you saying you can do some of the other things, but you're saying when you present yourself to job recruiters or company, you should at least have show that you are good at one thing specifically, even though you are doing some other stuff. You want to showcase that you are good at one particular area. Is that basically what you should mean? Okay.
Yeah.
So, how did you learn to do the resumes, the CV, the job application? Were you recommended? Did you network a lot at school? Like, what's the process from going from school to actually getting the job?
But more than going from school, going from my living room, because everything about lighting I learned it on my own. So I started basically from zero on that regard. Just basically hitting the wall and getting rejected and doing awful interviews. So, for example, I remember my first interview. I was really nervous. I obviously had to talk with the lead lighting artist, and man, I sucked. I didn't know what I was talking about, and most of the times I didn't even know how to English properly. So
That's okay. So that's interesting. So let's talk a little bit about there was 2 years, right? There was a gap of 2 years where you originally were a concept artist, but there was 2 years of rejection, and you're trying to figure out how to get into the industry. So let's go into detail. I think that's very useful because a lot of people come to me as well, and they're like, I spent 3 years, I spent 5 years, and I'm having a difficult times. And a lot of people, they give up. Before that, like they give up after a few months or 6 months, So you spent 2 years. So what did you do in the 2 years? Is that the 2 years you spent trying to get to work as a concept artist, like 1 year first, or did you quickly realize that you need to learn something new and then start applying for that?
I would say from the 2 years I spent almost one trying to do concept, and when that didn't work out, I started to do lighting, and that was another year and a half, almost, about just hitting the wall. Obviously, at first, my stuff, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just placing random lights all over the place and moving the directional light and see, oh, this could look good, stuff like that. I did stuff that I thought looked good, but now looking back at it, I didn't know what I was thinking back then. But anyway.
So how would you, because you spent 2 years kind of transitioning from originally you were trying to be concept artist, and then then you became a lighting artist. So what was the process? Because you talked about all the interviews. Let's talk a little bit about your experience from these interviews, from your application. Like, what can you pass on to the other people who are maybe student and also struggling right now in getting a job? Like, what did you learn that is bad interview, good interview, bad CV, bad resume, good CV? Like, let's dig into each of these subtopics and see what you have to offer.
Okay. As for when you are, one of the key things for me is just apply, even if you feeling that you are not good for the position. I would say just apply, because you never know what's going to come up out of it. Best case, you get an interview. Worst case, they ask you to thank you for your applications, but we have decided to move forward at this time. But I mean, if you hit the jackpot and you get an interview, that's already something that you can work on, and obviously it's going to boost your morale. So good.
I can agree with that. A good example from me as well is when I joined Ubisoft in France. I didn't even read the French. Like, it was written in French for French people, so I just used Google Translate, and then I translated the application, and I sent the application to France when I applied for the job in France. And normally I wouldn't do that because it was in French, so I would be thinking it's for French people, but it ended up working in my favor. So I I can vouch for that. That it's good to just apply. Yeah.
Just to quickly jump into the question I see here from Nina. It really depends. Well, okay, the question is that is the game industry very bad at work-life balance? I would say in most cases it's actually pretty decent. It's like a normal. You work from 9 to 5 or 6, depending on how it's stipulated. But in most cases, for example, at the moment, for me, is I'm quite happy with the work life balance I have at the moment. It's true that, for example, when I was finishing up the last few weeks on my previous project, the one for Sackboy, I did have a couple of weeks where I was working a little bit more, but I wouldn't say it was too bad. Maybe because it was my first job and I was way too hyped to actually get to work on something. So I don't know, but so far it's been good. So
Yeah, I think obviously it matters which company you also work for. I think Ubisoft is generally pretty good at balancing. I know at least a lot of people join Ubisoft because they have family, they have kids, and Ubisoft is pretty good at doing that. But I agree with. I understand why Nina is concerned because I also know companies that you work overtime a lot. But again, just do the research, pick the right place for you and your lifestyle. But a lot of juniors like to work overtime. They learn a lot. They get to work their way up very quickly. I think it's more of an issue when you get older and when you have a family and kids. That's when you start thinking about that you just want 8 hours and go home and do your thing, right? So that makes sense. So you had your interviews and your CVs, you say. So what else can you remember from that 2 years of applying and so on?
I know that, for example, in a couple of discourse I'm at the moment, I know that some people do spend a lot of time working on their CVs and resumes and getting it to look the best. So I have to say that mine wasn't really prepared. It was just a wall of text, and I feel like at the end of the day, the most important thing is going to be your portfolio. Is your portfolio good enough to say, okay, I'm giving him a chance for an interview? And just to get into the interview side of things, usually, at least in most cases, you are going to have one initial interview with the HR, human resources, basically to get to know you, get a first touch, and see if you are a good guy to work on, or stuff like that.
Okay.
And then obviously depends on the size of the company. You can either have an artist or have another interview with the actual core development team, so be it your lead lighting or the technical director or somebody from the team.
So how many interviews do you think you did before you got the job?
I don't know, way too many. I think in total, I don't know, maybe 30, 40. Maybe a little bit more. I don't know.
So what happened between the 30, 40? Did you change your formula? Did you change the way you did things? What do you think is besides you improving on your portfolio? What would you say would be the other reasons that you finally got an opportunity?
I mean, obviously you learn from your mistakes, or hopefully you learn from your mistakes, and obviously when you do your first one, you are scared and you don't know what to expect from the interview. But slowly, after many months and fucking it up all the time, you get to know what, and maybe not to know, no, but you are much more accustomed and you feel better when you are doing the interview. So I don't know, most of the time the interviews is just talk a little bit about yourself, where you come from, show portfolio, and maybe you do a little bit of feedback on a piece of two you did, or they give you a little bit of feedback on different pieces. Oh, what could you have done here, or what technical challenges did you have doing this or doing that? So basically just to test, okay, you have done this work, how did you think about doing this? Why did you approach it that way? And how would you do this in production, or how would you try to do it in a more production environment?
That's interesting. And how many interviews did you have of the same job position? Did you just have one for everyone, including Axis and Ubisoft Barcelona, or did you have multiple stages? How many stages did you go through?
Depends. I mean, for many, I just got the reaction without even getting an interview, at least at the beginning, but also towards the end, I was still getting reactions out of the blue. I had a couple going, just the first one, which obviously sucks, but that's how it works. You have to get used to the reactions, and okay, next one is going to be the one. I did have a couple. I think I did 2 or 3 art tests, which usually you are giving a scene which normally doesn't have any textures or anything. I have to say that in many cases you have to do some prep work with the assets. So basically, you have to make them. You have to fix some of them, or you have to change a couple of things to get them in engine, and then do the lighting and so on. Usually, you are given like 2 weeks, maybe. Usually 2 weeks, but you are free to show them the work earlier if you feel you accomplished the task. And I had a couple of positions where I had 4 or 5 interviews and didn't get the job. So it really depends.
Yeah, it depends. And did you do like a report, like a breakdown report, or just an art test, and then they judged based on the art test?
Oh no, I mean, always usually or at least how I like to do it is I had the art test, and then I do a report, basically putting my references, a little bit of my thought process, and how or why I did the things I did. So
Nina has another question which is a bit difficult to answer. I have a big problem answering these type of questions. Can you give us a few of your favorite Unreal Engine artists we can look up? I would say he's already given a few on the YouTube, the description. You can look up those, I guess, unless you have any other as well.
yeah, no, but I mean, I don't know. There are way too many which are. I mean, you can go to ArtStation, and you will stumble into hundreds and hundreds of amazing artists using either Unreal or any other engine. But
so let's rephrase this to maybe an easier question. Is there any lighting artist that you kind of look up to, or their style is like something you like, or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, actually, obviously there are a couple which are, so to speak, big names in the industry, or at least the most outspoken. Although I have to say, for example, in the experience or many different Discord servers, there, Brian, he has been. That man is working in encyclopedia. I think he has a Twitter account where he has many different lighting tips.
Yeah, he has a Twitter account.
Yeah, also Maria, also I don't know. There are way too many. The good thing about ArtStation, for example, that's how I got to know many people. Was just going into a lighting artist and search for the people he's following or the people who are following them, and just look up for lighting, and it will show you many people that you have never heard of but are really good. So
yeah, I think it's common. A lot of good people, they are not necessarily outspoken, so you have to dig them out sometimes, because they're just quiet and they're just doing their thing.
yeah.
Do we want to look at some of your work or breakdown? Is there anything you want to share and kind of talk us through, like your thought process, your idea behind it, from your ArtStation pieces, maybe, or maybe maybe it's up to you. You can pick anything that you want to kind of reveal that this is how you start and end a lighting piece that you have in your ArtStation.
Let me share the screen. I think it's 1080 and wait, no, 30. Let's go live. I don't know if you can see it now.
It's no problem. I got it. We got it. Everyone sees it.
Okay, can you see it now still?
Yeah, we still see it.
Okay, so
I also hear my music in the background.
Okay. Anyways, so the thing is, I don't really know what to talk about, so I'm mostly going to show or do it as I would do in an interview.
Okay.
So most of the times, like interviewers, they obviously they have seen your work, they have seen your portfolio, and know and have gone through it, maybe briefly, maybe more in depth, but they know kind of the work you have done. So they either pick one for you, or they tell you to choose one and to talk about. So for example, one of the oldest I have here at the moment is this one of the school. I don't know if you guys see it. Yeah.
Yeah, we see everything.
So they will ask me how. So okay,
Yep, no worries.
They will ask, okay, talk a little bit about this piece, how you came up with the idea, and just guide me through the how you did this. So for example, in this specific piece, I think this was at the time when The Last of Us 2 came out, so everyone was doing diffuse lighting. And also the thing is that before this, most of my lighting pieces were just dropping the directional light, dropping the skylight. You have the window, that's where the sun comes in, and very clear, defined lighting direction. So I wanted to test something different. I want to test how to approach very diffuse lighting coming from the window here on the right. So that's how the idea started. And then, for example, they will ask me, is it dynamic? Is it ray trace? Is it baked? In this case, for example, is baked. So they will ask me if I had any difficulties doing light maps, or how did I work with it. So in this case, for example, most of my lighting comes from the skylight and the sphere I have around. And the thing, for example, is that for this piece, using the default settings for the skylight, I had really good lighting around the windows, but inside of the room, it was getting really dark. So I knew I had to somehow boost a little of the indirect lighting contribution from the skylight, for example. So what I did, obviously, just boost a little bit the skylight, the indirect lighting from the skylight, and that's how I got it to bounce a little bit more, give it more energy, and better lead the the environment. And for example, when I showed this piece to during an interview, they asked me if how did I approach the problem, the solution to the problem. I gave them this. I boosted the indirect lighting, but they asked me if I hadn't thought about approaching it from the tone mapper perspective to lower a little bit the shadows, upscale a little bit the shadows and bring the shadows up a little bit. I don't know if you have any comments. Feel free to.
No,
So,
I'm just listening, and of course, if anyone is unsure about the terms, because we are assuming you know the terms like tone mapper, post processing, diffuse light, things like that. So feel free to ask if you're unsure what it means, and we'll go into detail if you need to. So I mean, you did this piece, of course, and so you're saying you didn't necessarily add any extra light. You used post-processing, tone mapping to kind of adjust
yeah,
the shadows, basically.
I did. For example, for most of my pieces, what I usually do, or what I used to do, is at least for the environment stuff, I do bake. I bake my lighting, because obviously you get the bounce, and you get. Obviously, I'm only doing for the screenshots, so I'm going to spend my time trying to get the best result I can. But for example, here behind obviously the light is coming from here, and this part was getting too dark to my liking, and also some parts here behind the door were getting too dark. So I just have a couple dynamic lights just to give a little bit of fill light to some of the darkest places. So for example, I also have one spotlight coming from the top and filling the space a little bit, just to better help the image.
Okay, so how is this different when you have these PCs that you are? I can see you also did editing in DaVinci Resolve. How is this different than when you are doing something production related, the game related, and it's interactivity, it's a game, and you probably don't have access to DaVinci Resolve, and you might have to be careful about the extra light you place everywhere, because of it might affect the player or whatever, and so on. How is that difference, and how is your process then?
Obviously, during the production, you are going to be much more limited, be either by the budget, the performance budget, or by the gameplay, how it's going to affect the gameplay and stuff like that. Usually, you tend to work with what you have and try to do the most out of it. And as always, lighting is a really iterative work, so you have to check, get feedback, work on it again. And the thing about lighting is that you are also working on the environment as the rest of the team is still working on the level and the props and the assets. So everything is changing constantly. So you have to be talking in constant communication with tech artists, environment artists, with your lead, with the director, see how everything works and how everything fits.
Cool. So you have another piece which I remember, because I remember actually giving feedback on it, and it's the middle piece with the reindeer or something. So how did you approach this? Because I briefly remember some of your work in progress shots. What were your challenges when you were doing this, and what were you trying to achieve when you were lighting this one?
So for this one, it just happened randomly. At the time, I was learning a little bit about creating landscape materials, see how to have different materials within the landscape material, and how to paint each one. So for example, here I have the water material, I have the leaf material, and I also have the rock one. So I was testing and playing around how to blend between different layers and how to make it work somewhat decently, and just started to add some Megascans assets, the flowers, the reindeer, and everything, and slowly but steadily, I started to get to this. I don't know.
And did you use any extra lighting, or did you manage to do this with as few light as possible, or did you place some extra on the noses or on the plants somewhere, or how was that?
For this one specifically, I think it was mostly directional and skylight. Basically the ambience lighting. I did, for example, I didn't have proper shadows, so at some point I just placed some of the plants floating off screen to give me proper shadowing, and I was able to move them around and get shadows where I wanted them. So obviously there is still some cheating, so to speak, because it's just a static image. It's the same for cinematics. Anything that you have a fixed camera, you have the freedom to do stuff that in an actual game you cannot. So.
And because you're working from home right now, is it right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And are you using the in-house engine of Ubisoft, or are you using another engine, or how's that?
Yeah, at the moment I'm using in-house, and also sparingly I'm also using a little bit of EU Unreal Engine, but that's mostly for my own stuff. So also I'm hyped because I want to test the Unreal 5, but my laptop at the moment doesn't have the power, so it's just going to crash, burn, and die. So.
I was going to ask you that next, if you had the chance to download the demo or try it, or are you just watching other people use it? Okay.
No, I'm just watching other people. Although I did try, I haven't tried the demo, but I have tried Unreal 5 a little bit just to see the lumen and how it works. It seems to be screen space, at least for the most part, but I know that it's also using some distance field GI and also some voxel for large scale, but I haven't really touched on that yet. So.
Is this better, Jon? Because my floor I think is uneven, you see, and I keep rolling backwards. So I think hopefully you can hear me better now, Jon. Just leave me a message. Well, so what did you learn during your time in Axis?
So for Axis, the thing is that Axis was working with on Sackboy, but we were doing mostly the in-game cinematics for the game. So not actual gameplay stuff, but most of the before the boss you have a cutscene which is in-game. So, or after the boss fight you have the celebration scene. One of the things I had to learn it was how to manage the budget, how to work with profiling, and basically how to optimize stuff. Because before doing anything, when you are doing stuff for yourself, you just throw as many lights as needed, and you make it look good. But then you start to work on something, and you realize that if you want to hit the 60 frames per second, you have to keep it within budget.
So how do you keep yourself up to date, technology wise, skill wise? Do you also do other things like photography, or do you still do concept art? Because a lot of people, they learn a lot lighting from just being able to draw as well. So what are you doing, and have you done so far to keep yourself on the top of the line when it comes to lighting?
I wouldn't say top of the line, but I'm trying to just hang in there. Obviously, when you make of this your work, you are already learning for 8 hours a day because you are doing this at the job. So you're already spending 8 hours. Sporadically I'm trying to do some personal pieces here and there, but mostly watching YouTube content for different Unreal or different games and how they approach lighting, how they approach gameplay and stuff like that. As for photography and films, I try to do photography on my spare time, although I'm just doing it sporadically, so not as much. One thing I've noticed is that now whenever I have like sunset and I get a really nice bounce from the wall, or just watching the how the sun through the leaves get diffused with the depending on the distance from the sun. I just think that I didn't focus on before, but now I think it's because of I'm doing this all the time. I start to pick up stuff and just see around and try to see how the lighting, for example, works here.
Is this the same when you watch movies or play games? You're kind of critiquing or analyzing the lighting of the entertainment you watch?
Yeah. So, for example, at some point, I'm wondering how did they approach the lighting for this area, or how did they do the volumetric clouds for Horizon, for example. They have a really good paper on that. Now I think they will have the gameplay presentation for the Horizon 2. I think it like 2 hours, so I'm hyped for that.
Wow.
See what they present, and yeah.
That's cool. Just a reminder for the new people also joining, you can ask a question and we will read it out for Pablo to answer. That's cool.
How you doing, Stuart? Nah, one of my flatmates.
Yeah. I figured someone you know. Well, that's always nice to have someone you know also join and have a watch.
Mm-hmm.
So, what advice do you have then? Based on, because obviously you have an opportunity to reflect as we're talking now as well. So what is the 3 most important things you think is important for someone studying, being newly graduate, and applying for work in the game industry in general? What are the things you would like to hope or wish someone told you?
At those 3 different stages, or just in general when you are trying to get into? Okay. I would say one is to like what you do, because if you don't like what you do, you're just putting yourself to do 8 hours a day something that you don't like. So you have to like doing lighting or doing anything related to game, because at the end of the day it's a lot of hours you're going to be spending on it. So yeah. The second one is going to be that you keep working, and even though you might get rejected, you keep pushing and just trying your best. Also, you have to do your research, see how different people who are already working and how other people in different places can help you, giving you feedback or just pointing you to different resources and stuff like that.
I do think there is probably no excuse not to do anything right now, I think, because when I started out, we didn't have a lot of these helpful resources. There was this Discord didn't exist. I don't even think Instagram existed when I started. YouTube was just barely getting started. When I finished my education, that's when YouTube started. So I think there's definitely a lot of resources there. But how do you what's the word, filter good quality, bad quality according to you? How do you filter what to pay attention to and what to read, what to watch?
I mean, I would say it's a difficult question. Obviously, the more you you know it's going to get easier to know and filter what could be useful and what could be not. I would say anything from the developers of the engine. So in this case, anything that Epic posts in YouTube channels is going to be really useful. Also, there are some people who already work on games and they do resources, be it CGMA courses or be it YouTube channels or stuff like that. Those are really useful resources to get to know and see. I have never done any paid courses, but I have heard from them. Some of them are good, some of them are so. So you will have to see the reviews, and if you're lucky, ask somebody who already studied that. So
cool, that's good. Is there any final question before we end? Because I see we are almost on our 1 hour mark. Pablo, do you have anything you would like to share, show, promote for yourself before we end this conversation?
No, not really. Obviously, I when I was getting to know lighting, I did watch a couple lighting interviews with Peter Tran and other people online, and those were the things that really helped me to pursue lighting. So when you told me to do something similar with this interview, I was like, yeah, why not?
Yeah,
So,
I think that's appreciated. Thank you so much for making time for the viewers and the channel. If we don't have any final questions from all the people, we are probably gonna end this. I will catch up a little bit in private with Pablo before I release him back into the wild. But thank you, everyone.
I want to say before we go that you're going to, like, for people who are going to be applying and learning, this is going to take time, and you're going to hit the wall many times. But if you keep pushing, you get through, and go for it.
That's definitely true. Don't give up, and I totally agree with this. Thank you guys for watching, and I will end the stream, but not necessarily my conversation with Pablo. So if the screen ends now, it's because you can see me click end stream. So thank you for watching.